Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon session. We're going to wait for some of our online viewers to join us and for some people to physically arrive here at our offices. So far, nobody's online, but I'll keep an eye on that. And as soon as there's some people online, then we can start just having a chat that side. Otherwise, as soon as our physical participants arrive, then we will kick things off that side. Speak shortly.
Save them in folders, but they're not going to send folders. I'm sending the picture, you can just save them in folders.
Yep.
Actually, I can set them in maybe 1 week.
Hi guys, how are you doing? Okay, there seem to be some traffic issues here in Durban. Some of our normal guys have SMS to say that they're stuck in traffic and going to be running a little bit late. If you have questions from your side that you would like us to discuss, you're welcome to post them on the group chat or email them to me, and then we can chat through those. Otherwise, one of my colleagues here is busy getting some questions together as well that he's just going to upload into a shared folder, and we can start discussing those shortly as well.
it's on the shared drive.
Okay, so let's just have a look on the shared drive. Where about on the shared drive did you put it?
On the shared
Right.
drive.
Team docs.
Okay, I created a folder called CISA, so it should be updating it in the main screen. CISA.
Okay, so that's not there yet. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so 5 seconds. Yeah. So I'm gonna check the date now.
Okay. Okay. Cool. I may as well leave them on there. Okay, JP, I'm just reading your question now. So in our ISACA's Q&A database, there are conflicting answers as to which is more severe with regards to bringing in a digital frame into a company. One answers that malware is more severe, the other answer states that data theft is the more severe issue. Yeah. JP, it's a kind of difficult one to answer that properly without seeing the actual question, because sometimes there are slight differences between the question which helps focus the answer onto one area or the other. Do you have an example of those two questions that we could look at? To everybody that's joining us, please join into the group chat so that we can post questions in there to discuss. Over and above that, we'll shortly be putting some questions up on screen to discuss as well. These questions come out of the 2013 CISA review guide out of the sample exam that the guys wrote on Saturday. So I've got some of those sample exam questions that I'll put up on screen shortly. In the meantime, if there's any other questions you want discussed, just post it into the group chat. Okay. JP, if you find some examples of those, you can either mail them through or just message me sometime before Saturday, and then we can see if we can resolve that issue for you. Okay, I'm going to take one of the questions here. Let's just pop that up on screen. Let me just share that screen over there. Carmen, I'm just going to mute you that side for now. We'll unmute you just now if you want to say anything. In the meantime, there's just a bit of noise coming through from your mic there. Join us in the group chat as well, and then we can take it from there. Okay. So the question that's up on screen at the moment was question A171. An IS auditor evaluating logical access controls should first. And then they gave us a couple of options there. So option A, document the controls applied to the potential access paths to the system. B, test controls over the access path to determine if they are functional. C, evaluate the security environment in relation to written policies and practices. And D, obtain an understanding of the security risk to information processing. So when evaluating logical access controls, one of the key things is to actually have a look at the access paths, but what they're asking us here is what we should actually do first. So normally when we're doing any kind of engagement or reviewing any kind of process, the first thing we need to do is obtain an understanding. So if we have a look here, option A is talking about documenting the controls, so that's before we have an understanding. B is testing controls, which would come much later in the process. C is doing an evaluation of the security environment, which is a broader item. And option D is obtain an understanding of the security risk to information processing. So D would be that higher level first step of obtaining that overall understanding. Okay. We go to the next question over there. Okay, the next question that we have up on screen is A1-74. Which of the following would be the most effective audit technique for identifying segregation of duties violations in a new enterprise resource planning implementation? So before we go into the detail of this, we're looking for the most effective technique, and we're trying to identify segregation of duty violations. Now, within large ERP packages such as your SAP environments, your segregation of duties and setting up of your authorizations is an extremely complex and time-consuming task, and very few organizations get it right or get it right the first time. You'll often hear of people doing a SAP re-implementation and of having to go and redo their authorizations so that they can try and get it right. So if we look at it in light of that, so option A, reviewing a report of security rights in the system. That's a possibility, but it could be quite time-consuming and cumbersome to do that. And when you've got many, many different transactions, it makes it quite difficult to actually deal with that. Okay. Okay, we've got some of our guys physically arriving here. I think traffic has definitely been a problem this evening. Okay. I'm just going to finish off this question and then I'll welcome people who've just arrived with us here. Okay, so option A, reviewing a report of the security rights in the system, it is a possibility, but it would be quite time-consuming to do that. And within your SAP kind of environment, it may be close on impossible to actually do it and do it properly. Option B, reviewing the complexities of authorization objects. Again, you can do that, but they are extremely complex and it is quite difficult to do. But it would help you in your overall understanding of the environment. Option C, building a program to identify conflicts and authorizations. In reality, that's what most organizations do. That you have tools out there such as Secure Info or SAP GRC, which are programs built to identify conflicts and authorizations. So that is certainly the most common one. Option D, examining recent access rights violation cases. Well, again, it is an option, but it certainly wouldn't be the most effective. So if you read the official answer, that's pretty much what they're saying, is that since the objective is to identify violations in segregation of duties, you have to define the logic that will identify the conflicts, and then a program could be helped to, or be developed to actually do that for you. And as I say, you can go and buy one of those, which then makes it a lot easier. JP is asking the question, is the question related to a small normal-sized entity? Would the answer have been different? I think the fact that they tell you that it's an ERP application means that you're looking at something like a SAP or an Oracle Financials or something like that. And that immediately tells you that it is a larger, more complex organization. If they said to you it was just a small accounting package, then perhaps it could be a little different. And then you could perhaps just go and look at a report of the security rights, rather than having to have a system on top of the system to actually identify these conflicts. Okay, I'm going to just switch the camera back on for a sec so that you can see those of us who have just joined us here. You are talking to JP and Carmen and Krishna and Kevin. Most of them don't have cameras and mics, so they're chatting to us on the group chat on the side over here. But they can still see and hear us and participate in the session that way. Okay. We've discussed 2 questions so far. What we did is that Zubair went through questions that he had had a difficulty with in terms of Saturday's paper, and then we took the book here and took the answer sheet to identify the actual answer and the explanation within the detail of the book. And then he photographed that for us so we can put those up on screen and talk through those. Now, you've been through and marked yours, and the specific ones in there, then just make a note of them. We'll talk through the ones that Zubair has identified here, and if it doesn't talk about your particular ones, we can then talk through those as well. Okay. So the book is here if you want to have a look at it. And if you find specific ones, you're also welcome to photograph it. You can have a picture of it and we'll pop it up on screen as well. So those guys who are online can also actually see it. Master and down this side. So anybody wanting to chat, please go into the group chat and then just let me know that you want to talk to us, and then I'll put the sound back up. I'm not hearing clinks and plonks from everybody else online. Okay, so the next question that Zubair identified for us that he got wrong was A178. So an IS auditor was involved in designing an organization's business continuity plan, and he's been assigned to audit the plan. What should he do? Okay. So immediately we can sense that there's some kind of segregation or conflict of interest here. Somebody's now designed something and now they have to audit their own work. And under normal circumstances, you wouldn't want that. But if it's in a very small environment, there may be elements of that. So if we look at the options, then what should this individual do? Option A, decline the assignment. There's a possibility that seems like a reasonable kind of option, but if you're working in a small environment and you are the auditor, it may not be the best for the organization for you to do that. Option B, inform management of the possible conflict of interest after completing the audit assignment. That's unhelpful, because if you go to management afterwards and they say, hey, there's a problem here, you shouldn't be doing this, then you're wasting everybody's time. And it's too late potentially to get somebody else to come and do the work. So that's not really a good option. Option C, inform the business continuity planning team of the possible conflict of interest prior to beginning the assignment. Yeah, I suppose you should do that. That's a good thing to do. But they're not ultimately the decision makers. So they shouldn't really be the ones saying it's okay. And you may well have been working with that same team during the assignment or during the exercise of actually designing the BCP. So they probably know that already. So it's not, so while it's not a negative thing, it's not a hugely helpful one. Option D, communicate the possibility of conflict of interest to management prior to starting the assignment. Option D makes the most sense in terms of telling the people who need to know and telling them at the right time. Okay. Okay, we've flip back to the logical access control question, which we covered earlier. Did any of you guys, there was a question, I don't have the question numbers here, I've just got the answers. If you've got your answer sheet, there's a mapping of your answers to where it appears in the book. So on there you'll find a mapping to question A171. If you can find it and just check whether you guys all got that right. If you didn't, I'll just very quickly repeat it. Probably in the second or third column.
There's A171, it's number 81.
Okay, did you guys get 81 right or wrong?
Sure. You definitely need to go through it.
Okay, that's fine. A couple of people this side got it wrong. So,
Got it right.
you got it right. Well done. Okay, so just then to go over this one again. So it says an IS auditor evaluating logical access controls should first. Okay? So if you think of the audit process and the steps that you need to go through in the audit process, the very first thing one normally does before you get to testing or documenting or anything like that is you normally go through some kind of understanding process. Okay? So if we look at the possible answers here, A said document the controls applied to the potential access path to the system. So that's something that one would normally do relatively early in the process, is document the controls, but it may not be the first thing you do. Okay, testing controls, no, that would happen like towards the end. C, evaluating the security environment in relation to written policies and practices. Already that's evaluating an environment and it's a bigger, broader exercise. Option D, obtain an understanding of the security risk to information processing. That would make the most sense to do as your first step, to obtain that understanding of the environment.
So before you design the logical controls.
So before you get stuck into testing or documenting, you obtain an understanding. Because otherwise we might be testing the wrong stuff or looking at the wrong system or misinterpreting the level of risk associated with the system. Okay, so I'm going to flip out of this one. Okay. So those were all related to domain 1. So let's go on to the domain 2 questions. So this was A2-3. Okay. Again, for everybody joining online, any questions you have, go into the group chat and then you can type in your question there, or you can join into the discussion through there. I've got the sound turned down on this side, so if anybody wants to verbally participate in the discussion, then just let me know and I'll put the sound back up again. Okay. So, if you guys found a 2-3?
Yes, 105.
105. Okay, and how did you guys do in 105? Got it? Okay, so Zubair doesn't feel so bad. He's okay. You got it wrong as well? Okay, so a couple of people got this one wrong. Okay, so if we look at the question then, so it says to us that in a small manufacturing business, an IT employee is doing both manufacturing work as well as the programming activities. Okay, so the first thing is that it's a small business, and we need to take into account the realities of a small business, where often we can't have the segregation of duties that we would like to have. Okay, and then the employee is doing programming work as well as manufacturing work. Okay, so they're working in the factory, they're doing something, and they're also writing some of the programs. Okay? That in itself doesn't immediately shut up conflict of interest or segregation of duty conflict. But let's see. So then it says, which of the following is the best control to mitigate risk in this scenario? Okay. So it says option A, access restrictions to prevent the clerk from accessing the production environment. Well, if the guy's actually working in there and he's using the system, it may be necessary that he's using the system. So if we're going to restrict him from accessing the production system, that may not be feasible. Okay. Option B, by hiring additional staff.
The small company.
If it's a small company, you know, if they could afford to hire the staff, they probably would have already. So chances are that that's not really affordable, and we can't put the organization out of business because we want to try and have controls in place. Okay. Option C, automated logging of all program changes in the production environment. Well, that's probably helpful and useful if you did log all the changes, but just logging something is not a control. Somebody has to review the log in order for there to be some kind of control in place. And C is just talking about logging it. It's not talking about the review process. So without the review process, you've got a piece of text being written to a file somewhere, nobody ever looking at it, and it really doesn't help anybody. So that's not really a good option. And then option D, procedures to verify that only approved program changes are implemented. Well, if we can have that, then we've solved our problem.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so that would then be the most effective control.
Yeah. Well, I subsequently did the question and a light bulb moment. So after Saturday's whatever, I got the question again.
Okay.
It was just a light bulb moment. I answered fine.
Good.
Hopefully, I won't get light bulb moments on Sunday. I'll be getting them
you
on
want
Saturday.
them on Saturday, not on Sunday, and you want them on Saturday before or during the exam, not afterwards.
Yeah, you want the light bulb moments at that time.
Okay. So let's flip across to the next question here.
98%.
70, 60.
Okay, so the next question is A2-9. Let me just find where that is. So Bear, bring your paper. You should be able to find this quicker than anybody else.
Yeah.
Since they're your highlighted ones.
82-9.
What's that? Sorry.
I marked it in batches. I went downwards. So that's only
Okay.
60.
So how did you guys do then for this question?
What's the 80?
What should I answer? 98.
98.
I got it right.
Okay.
I also got it
We've
right.
got two people who got it right. Okay.
Not your answer. Oh, okay, no.
Okay, so we've got 2 out, 2 wrong. 3 out, 2 wrong. Okay, so we've got a 60% hit rate over here, so that's not bad. Okay, let's look at the question quickly then and see. So those who got it right can participate in the discussion and tell those who got it wrong what happened. Okay, so when auditing the IT governance framework and IT risk management practices that exist within the organization, the IS auditor identified some undefined responsibilities regarding IT management and governance roles. Which of the following recommendations is most appropriate? Okay, so A, review the strategic alignment of IT with the business. It's something that you want to do, but it's not really related to this undefined responsibilities. Okay. B, implement accountability rules within the organization.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, hopefully align.
So accountability rules would help us resolve some of these
because these are undefined responsibilities. So,
yeah.
you know.
So that helps. If we look at C, ensure that independent IS audits are conducted periodically. That's not going to help us deal with undefined responsibilities. And D, create a chief risk officer role. That's not going to help us with undefined responsibilities. So B is the one then that is the one that actually helps us here. Okay. Okay. Thanks, JP. I can see your link there. I'll try and do that in a moment. Let's go through the questions here What's going on? Are there only two here? Okay, there's probably only two in this one. Okay, so that's two there. I'm going to try and click on JP's link here and let's see if that one. Okay, so there's. Okay, let's try and figure so we can see it. There we go. Okay, so an organization has requested that an IS auditor provide a recommendation to enhance the security and reliability of its voice over IP system and data traffic. Which of the following would meet this objective? Okay, so what are we talking about here? Okay. So it's voice, VoIP, which is your telephone calls that are running over your normal data network, and data traffic. So that's just, I'm presuming it's some kind of LAN traffic or something. So you've got two different kinds of traffic here running over the network, and they want to enhance the security and the reliability. Okay. So first thing, a VoIP infrastructure needs to be segregated using virtual local area networks or VLANs.
Yeah,
that's a possibility. Okay, it's fairly common to take your VoIP traffic and put it into a separate VLAN because you can also prioritize the traffic better because voice traffic is fairly time sensitive. You don't want to end up having the data all arriving at once, then there's a long delay. You don't have a nice call experience. Yeah, I don't know if you guys online heard that, but normal data traffic can be retransmitted, whereas VoIP traffic, you only want it once and you need it in order at the right time, otherwise it doesn't really make sense. Okay. Option B here, buffers need to be introduced at the VoIP endpoints. Well, in a way, you don't want to buffer traffic because if you're buffering your VoIP, then you're causing delays on your voice call. So I'm not sure that, unless you're talking tiny buffers, but you don't want any serious buffers, otherwise you can't really hear the calls. C, ensure that end-to-end encryption is enabled in the VoIP system. Well, yeah, you can do that. And some of the
security.
Yeah.
It does say enhanced security. Okay, so end-to-end encryption in the VoIP system is fairly common, but yeah, it doesn't deal with reliability there. Okay, and it's also only dealing with the VoIP traffic. It's not dealing with the data traffic, so it's only dealing with part of the problem here. Okay. If we then look at D, ensure that emergency backup power is available for all parts of the VoIP infrastructure. Well, that's also fairly important because your normal telephone lines, if the power goes off, you can still make telephone calls.
Yeah.
If you're now running a VoIP system and you're running it over the LAN and your power goes out and your switches and routers go down, you can't make calls. And if you've now got emergency calls that you need to make, you can't make them. So that's a big problem. But it's not dealing with security necessarily, So again, it's
a hard question.
If there's an outbreak of virus on the data LAN,
Mhm.
if you put voice network in the data, so the network will go down.
That's true.
That's why
That's exactly true. If you have something happen on the data network that causes unusually high usage patterns, then it'll stop your voice calls from working, and you don't want that to happen. So going all of that, option A looks the most likely. I don't have the correct answer here in front of me. JP, maybe you can tell us.
It is option A.
Okay. So okay, so option A is the correct answer for that. Yeah. The only one that I must admit that is a little bit of a challenge around this is that if you kind of go and read security guides, okay, they will often tell you that you shouldn't use VLANs alone as a security mechanism because there's all sorts of VLAN hopping and other hacking techniques that can be used to bypass the VLANs. So it shouldn't be the only thing you do. Okay? But as a first step, it's certainly the most effective out of all of these to achieve the objectives of what the question is asking. But I certainly wouldn't recommend it as being the only step. You would still want the encryption on top of that. Yeah. And most VoIP systems support encryption natively. It's just a matter of turning it on. But turning it on then does affect how many calls it can handle simultaneously, because it takes additional processing power. So, yeah, JP, I hope that helps answer your question there. Should encryption be turned on within the firm? Normally the recommendation is yes, you want to turn encryption on over VoIP traffic, otherwise you can listen in on people's calls, and that's not so desirable. The only downside might be that if you haven't kind of spec'd your equipment to handle your encryption from the starting point, then if you turn it on, your PABX or whatever equipment that you're dealing with may not be able to deal with the call volumes. So if you've got 100 people in the organization and your equipment is spec to deal with, let's say, 25 simultaneous calls, now you turn the encryption on and that drops to 10. Well, now you might have people who can't actually make calls when they need to make calls. So it's not as simple as just saying, yes, you must turn it on, always turn it on. Not if it's going to cause disruption and you can't then make the calls that you need to. You should, from a design perspective right up front, when you're buying the equipment, look at it and say, yes, we want to have it turned on, and therefore spec the equipment to support what you need, and not be in that unenviable position later of having to make that kind of call. You can also turn it on for specific lines. So you could say, this number over here must have it, but then what do you do when it's between a line which must have it and a line that mustn't? So you end up with quite complex rules. But yeah. Let's see. How do I do that? Did we cover both of those?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go then onto the domain 3 questions here from Zubair. That's fine, it's no problem. We can quickly turn that around. Okay. So how did you guys do on this question, A39? It is there, 131. So this is question 131.
Shockingly enough, I got it right.
You got it. So we had one person get it right. Congratulations.
I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, 131 I got it right.
131 you got it right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just get started.
Sure. I'm getting messed up. Everyone else gets it right.
Because I assumed that the others wasn't correct, so I just went to the
Yeah.
not knowing what
So
it is,
the-
but I kicked out the one that I thought it couldn't be at all.
Yeah, and that's the right thing to do. Your exam technique can get you through these things, so definitely use it to help you where you can. But at the same time, by going through these, now you know what SCARF means going forward, and then that can help you. So next time around, you can perhaps use that to still get the right answer when you don't know what the right answer is. But let's just look at it quickly. Okay. So which of the following is the most effective tool for monitoring transactions that exceed predetermined thresholds? So option A, generalized audit software. We've spoken about GAS before, and that's your more general analytic type software. So tools such as ACL and IDEA and those other kind of data analytics tools. Okay, and that wouldn't be the most effective tool for monitoring for exceeding of predetermined thresholds. It certainly could be used for doing that, but it's not the most effective. B, integrated test facility. No. Can anybody tell us what the ITF does?
Integrated test facility.
You build it into your systems, you have predetermined data sets that you feed through to get expected results. Okay? So it's for determining, or it's for showing that you have continued functioning of a system and that you haven't messed something up along the way when you've made a change in the system. But it's not working with live data, so it's not going to help you know anything about monitoring of transactions. Okay? So snapshots, what the snapshot just takes a picture of information at a particular point in time. So it could be snapshots of data, snapshots of program logic, whatever it might be. So that's not going to help us. So yes, process of elimination gets it there, but you also should remember then that systems control audit review file, or SCARF, allows you to define certain thresholds and exceptions. And when that gets triggered, you then get the information that you need. Let's move on to the next one here.
Shockingly enough, I got it right.
So there, you're the only one who got these wrong.
Thank you, Clay, for the audio.
Okay. So a question that was online here, just related to that last question, was saying, what's the difference between SCARF and an audit hook? Do you guys remember we spoke about audit hooks at some point?
That's for continuous.
Yeah.
So yeah, so audit hooks, if I remember correctly, relate to continuous auditing, and it's kind of a facility that you build into the application to allow you to integrate certain audit tests with it. So I guess SCARF is similar in some respects in that it's dealing with live data, and it's perhaps different in others in that SCARF is letting you define, let's just go back there, kind of defining exceptions and traps that are then going to kick certain things off, whereas audit hooks, it would be more programming that you would need to write to integrate with those audit hooks. Does somebody have the manual? Yeah, you've got the review manual here. Don't you want to just look up what it says about audit hooks in the manual there?
Nothing, unless we go to the domain on the glossary of terms, there's nothing.
Yes, this technique involves embedding hooks in application systems to function as red flags and to induce IS auditors to act before an error or irregularity gets out of hand.
No, which domain? Because with different versions.
Yeah. But it's, I don't think
The page numbers are normally
Which
fairly.
domain?
it's on chapter 3.
What is the
Yeah.
reference number in there?
3.1.3.8, online auditing techniques.
Yeah.
So if you're reading that, they are fairly similar.
Yeah, because it does fall under the same area. Like snapshots falls, the scar falls, so it's got like all the definitions.
Yeah.
So it's basically online auditing techniques,
So all of these then fall under the online auditing techniques.
except when, yes.
Okay. So what would the difference then? If you've got the two in front of you there, what's the key difference between SCARF and audit hooks?
Scar, the use of this technique involves embedding specially written audit software in the organization's host application system, so the application systems are monitored on a selective basis.
Not an ongoing basis.
It's on a selective basis.
Okay.
And audit hooks is like basically red flags.
So it's still not completely clear what the difference is.
White box testing. It's, yeah, I heard about it on Saturday.
Okay, so I think the two are fairly similar. One would hope that in a question they're not going to ask you explicitly what the difference between the two are. I think if you go back and just read through it in the book, you can be aware then of what's happening there.
It's just reading a novel in my flight tomorrow morning. What kind of novel I should be reading?
It might be better to read that book. That's what we look at now. Question, answers, and explanation. Go to a whole which one?
That is answer.
Question and answer.
Okay, so what we're having a look here at A3.13.
103.
103, yeah.
Okay.
Shocking, Lina.
You got it right, got it right,
Yeah,
got it right,
you got it wrong.
got it wrong.
I got 8.
I also got it wrong.
You're an auditor.
So this is a 50-50.
You're supposed to get it right. You're an auditor.
Okay, so we've got a 50-50 here. Let's have a look at this
Because
one
it's a
then.
fixed end date and this.
So, which of the following would be the best approach to ensure that sufficient test coverage will be achieved for a project with a strict end date and a fixed time to perform the testing? Okay. So that means we don't have unlimited time. We can't test everything. We've got to have some kind of technique or method for picking what we're going to test. Okay, so A, rank the requirements and test in terms of importance and frequency of use.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be one way of doing a ranking. B, test coverage should be restricted to functional requirements.
Even functional requirements, highest ranked. Same thing.
So functional requirements, yeah, I'm not sure that it's necessarily the highest. The thing is that what happens if you've got more functional requirements than time? Okay. So it's not going to, your functional requirements are perhaps most of your requirements. So it's not helping you select which functional requirements. Okay? And there's no kind of evaluation doing it. It's kind of saying doing them all. And some of the functional requirements, we might use it once a year or once in 3 years, and it's not that important. So you're placing equal on that. Okay. Option C. Okay, so you were confused then between A and B. So in these kind of questions, what you want to also do is, using that exam technique, look at it and say, it's really the question, we've got limited time, we've got limited budget. So we need a way of being able to choose which ones are the most important. So we've got to have some kind of prioritization. If your answer is not giving you some kind of prioritization, then the answer can't be actually right. Yeah.
Let me first check if I got it right. Shocking.
Okay, so we've got one right over here, one wrong over here. Yeah. You got one right, you got it wrong. Okay, so we're 3-2 in terms of wrongs to rights. 4-2. Okay, so we've got about 66%. Okay. So those who got it right, can pat yourself on the back. Congratulations. One in the few.
See, there's elements, I think element 5 is the problem. So what I
Okay, so an IS auditor has found time constraints and expanded needs to be the root cause for recent violations of corporate data definition standards in a new business intelligence project. So what are they saying here? Time constraints and expanded needs is causing violations of data definition standards. So that sounds like some kind of scope creep is going on. And so they're expanding the scope of what they're trying to do. They're running out of time, now they're taking shortcuts.
Yeah.
Okay. Which of the following is the most appropriate suggestion for the auditor to make? A, achieve standards alignment for an increase of resources devoted to the project. So, yeah, if you increase the number of people on the project, then that gives you additional capacity to deal with the issues. So that's certainly an option.
Since they didn't talk about anything related to resources constraint, like.
Yeah. They're saying, be align the data definition standards after completion of the project. Look, trying to fix anything after the project is hugely expensive and is not really helpful. Okay. Okay. D, enforce standards compliance by adopting.
It was really
So 3 of us went for D. Did you also?
Yeah.
Oh, you got it right. Okay.
Yeah,
D.
see, it was
So
between,
4 against.
we're good at getting it to 50-50, and then.
Oh, it's good that you're getting it to 50-50. At least that much you're doing. Okay, but if we look at D, okay, so D it's saying enforce standard compliance by adopting punitive measures against the violators. Okay, so you've got a project. Okay, somehow their scope has been expanded, and they don't have enough time to do this thing properly. Okay, now you want to smack them because they're doing the damnedest to finish this project on time.
Are they better?
You know, that's not really helpful. Okay, so remember there was like a little pyramid somewhere which kind of said, you know, if you're expanding the requirements, you know, then you're either going to increase the amount of time the project takes, or you've got to increase the number of resources on it. I don't know if you remember that triangle showing the constraints. Okay, and this is exactly what this one is. Using that triangle, you get to the answer here. Okay, if they're telling you that the problem is that you're expanding scope, okay, and you've got a fixed deadline, the only option is you have to increase the number of people. There isn't another option.
I just, when everything fails, seriously, that one, I mean, I didn't really know, but I just thought, well, if you get more people, you'll probably get it done. I was not in the
Okay, let's have a look here. What's next? Okay, so we're back to our SCARF questions. I'm going to flip. Question? 1.
The first one.
Okay, we'll come back to that now.
No, question 1.
Yeah, one was also wrong.
What do you mean?
I went for.
I could be.
Nice.
That was a really good man. I hope you've been productive in that.
I'll take my half percent. And then coming here, there was a major accident. Actually, it's still there at the end. So I had to go to the airport from actual side. So the traffic is backed up like right.
Okay.
Actually,
Okay.
parked.
A4-128.
Hey, which one is this today?
A4-128. There. A4-128. What? Question 121.
Okay. I shot myself on this one and it's fine.
Okay, so we got 2 wrong so far.
What was the answer? C.
I will not even
C is
shot
the answer,
Okay,
yeah.
I'll-
You got C right. Okay, so it's 2-1. No, 3-1.
nowhere near.
3-1, 4-1, wrong, 5-1. Okay, well done, Melissa. You're the only one who got it right.
Because I know I remember going for a lot of questions like this, and the topology is like basically the most important thing when you're trying to understand the network and stuff. So I don't know, even when you go through the questions in chapter 4, you'll come up with a lot of topology questions.
You know, like you must have got this right because you told me about this. You're not sure. Yeah.
So you're overanalyzing the questions.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And he explained it to me.
And remember, you're not overanalyzing the people, you're going to take too much time.
Okay, so let's just look through them quickly, okay?
Yeah.
So we're reviewing configuration of network devices. The first step is, and we had that first step earlier about the first step, get the understanding before you do
what
any
it looks
kind
like,
of
yeah.
investigation or work around this, okay? So best practices for the type of network devices deployed. Yeah, at some point you're going to want to know what the best practices are, but the best practices are configuration standards. And you're going to need that when you're doing testing. So that, in a way, is almost the first step of your testing. So that's further down the line. Where the components of the network are missing, yeah, that also sounds like part of the testing as to whether you've got completeness in terms of your plan or in terms of your documentation. So that's, again, as part of testing. The importance of the network devices in the topology, so that's part of understanding and part of your risk assessment up front of knowing which ones are more important and where to focus effort. And D, whether subcomponents of the network are being used properly or not. Again, that's more part of the testing side of things. So the one that's earlier in the sequence, again, is option C.
Yeah, you've got one bit.
Okay, so this is A4 131. You've got its questions.
Yeah, 125.
125. Okay. Okay, so far we're on one right, one wrong, wrong. Okay, now we're on 3-1,
So I guess
4-1,
starting.
4-2. So 66% of the people got this one wrong. Abdullah, I see your question here. We will discuss it in a minute. Let's discuss the one that's on screen, then we'll come to yours. Thank you for sending that through. Okay. So, which of the following database controls, okay, so that means we kind of know roughly where it's coming from, it's in the database section, would ensure that integrity of transactions is maintained, okay? It's integrity of transactions. It's not encryption, it's not stored data, it's something to do with transactions, okay? And an online transaction processing system. So it's not batches, it can't be batch totals or anything like that, okay? So A, authentication controls. We need authentication controls to maintain integrity of stored data, but that's not so much about the transactions per se. Okay. B, data normalization controls. Data normalization helps you with data integrity, okay, but not transactional integrity. C, read, write, access log controls. Well, logs will tell us who's done what. It's not going to help us around transactions. D, commitment and rollback controls. Yes. Okay. If you understand how kind of modern databases work, what happens is when you have a transaction that is made up of a number of different components, okay, when you start this transaction, you put some kind of start command in there to say a transaction is now beginning. You then execute all your database commands to update this table, update that table, all those things. And when you're done with those, you then have a transaction end command followed by a commit. Now, when you do your commit, at that point it writes all of it. And if it fails at any point during that writing, it undoes everything. Okay? So in that way, it takes a whole series of separate commands and puts them all together, okay, and makes it a one unit, that either the whole thing goes in or the whole thing doesn't. It makes it much easier to ensure you've got integrity. Otherwise, if you fail halfway through a transaction, how do you know what's been written and what hasn't? Okay. So D then is definitely the answer there. We had a similar question somewhere around atomicity, I think it was. Okay. And there they were talking about an atom being a whole unit. And it's that same principle that came up there. Okay. So if you get anything around transactional integrity of a database, just remember you need a starting point, you need an end point, and you need to commit an entire transaction. Okay, so what I want to do here is try and see how I can maybe put a notepad I can put on screen the question that we've got here from Abdul. Yeah, so let's put that in there. We must format put that on. Okay. The question is, what process is used to validate a subject's identity? Okay. Is it identification, non-repudiation, authorization, or authentication?
I'll go for D.
D, authentication. Is B, non-repudiation. Okay. Any other answers here?
It means you can't deny.
Because non-repudiation.
It means you can't.
It must be verifiable by a third party.
You can't deny that you. Yeah, this non-repudiation, I saw it on the signatures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So non-repudiation is normally used when you're talking digital signatures and you're talking, that whole but that's more identity management from a certificate of authority kind of point of view, and it's around transactions. It's around that once you've said, this is me and I'm going to do this transaction, you can't take it back. Okay. So repudiation is taking something back and undoing it. Non-repudiation means you can't. Once you said it's you, it's you. Okay. So D then is the correct one.
Stick to my D.
Okay. And every time somebody logs into a system, okay, we need to know that, hey, this is who they say they are. And how do we do it? Normally with usernames and passwords. Okay? And that's your authentication process.
Is there such a thing as identification? Because that's where the confusion is.
So identity.
I don't think there's such a process.
Look, there probably is somewhere, but if you just come back down to the principles, okay, when you log into a system, okay, you want to validate the identity of the individual, and you do that through the authentication process. Once you've done that, you then need to decide what is this guy allowed to access, okay, and you do that through the authorization process. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Non-repudiation comes to transactions. So I want to buy something, and you say, well, I bought it, and then I say, well, no, I didn't. Okay, and then that's an unhelpful situation. So, okay, you'll come across questions around non-repudiation, definitely when looking at certificates and signatures.
The authentication here is the act of verifying the identity of the
So that's, so there's no identification in the manual, and
It's not a CISA word.
no, it's not one of the standard terms. You could probably find it in an Oxford dictionary, and that'll confuse you. It's like we kind of need to get into the ISACA CISA mindset just for these few days up until the exam. Afterwards, you can put your brain back in normal mode.
You can go back to normal.
Okay.
That's it.
Cool. That okay. That's great. You're welcome to paste more questions into the group chat here.
Be there, eh? Yeah.
I ever had
from 8:30 please come. And if you're there after 8:30,
Yeah.
They've got like exam instructions that they have to take you through on the day. So at about 8:30 they normally start with the exam instructions, and they say once they start the instructions you can't enter the venue. So they want you there at 8 so that you can choose your seat and just go through all of that. So
apparently you can't bring water. I saw in the discussion.
I saw all those discussions online.
Online, yeah.
Okay, but do yourself a favor, even though it says you can't take water, just take a bottle. Okay, but don't get upset if they don't let you take it in. But take it because they may let you take it in.
Yeah, online.
Driver's license is not a problem. I lost my ID many years ago, and they let me use my driver's license without a problem.
When did you write?
I wrote in December.
Oh, okay. While we're dwelling, we were writing when we were having a good time.
Absolutely.
That is early, 13.
Oh,
Okay. So let's have a look here at this question now. This is one of these encryption questions that you guys didn't really like. Okay, so Abdul, don't feel alone. We're already hearing comments this side that this is a hard one. So, what determines the strength of a secret key within a symmetric key crypto system? Okay? So what is this telling us before we even start looking at the answers? Okay. So what is a symmetric key crypto system? Symmetric key?
1 versus 2.
So there's only one key. Okay?
1.
So give an example of when you might use a symmetric key. I take a zip file, and I put a password on the zip file. I email the zip file to somebody, and I SMS them the password. Okay? anybody with that password can
Okay.
unlock that file.
And the OD is one.
And there's only one password. So there's certain uses for it. But, you know, if you look at, let's say, like a password keeper application on your phone, it gets locked, and then it gets unlocked using the password, and you're the only person who needs to unlock it. So in that scenario, it's a perfectly good system to use. Okay? Now they want to know about the strength of the secret key. Okay? So what makes, so effectively a secret key in this case is a password. So think of this now in terms of normal passwords and password complexity.
Yeah.
Okay? So think now when you're going onto Google or one of these things and you're creating an account. And it says that's exactly it. And as you type in your password, it's going from weak to moderate to strong to extra strong. So what is it that makes it move up that scale? That's what they're asking you here.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we go through these things, a combination of key length. So key length definitely comes into it. The longer the password, the better. Okay. Degree of permutation, yes. So how are you mixing it up? Have you got upper, you've got lower, you've got special characters, and the complexity of the data encryption algorithm that uses the key. The last bit is, the first part definitely yes. The last bit's like a maybe at this stage. Okay. A combination of key length, initial input vectors. Okay, I'm not sure what those initial input vectors are. And the complexity of the data encryption algorithm that uses the key. Okay, so the first one is the degree of permutation, which we said was definitely part of it. Okay, so A is sounding better than B. C, a combination of key length and the complexity of the data encryption algorithm. Well, A is definitely better than C. And D, initial input vectors and complexity. Okay, so when we look at all of those, A comes out as being the best answer. Because it's telling us it's the length and the permutations. Okay.
And you put 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
See, by complexity of algorithm, look, certain algorithms are stronger than others. So, you know, back in the old days, it was DES, and then DES got replaced with triple DES, and then it's AES 256 or whatever those might be. So you've got different algorithms over time, and they get better. So if we read that as being the type of algorithm using, then yes, the combination of your length, your permutations, and the strength of the algorithm will give you the best one. Okay. Abdul, is that making sense to you? And JP, are you coming up with the same answer that we were this side? Okay, I'm not seeing. Oh.
They are writing, you know, silent and just write.
Yeah.
They say hello.
JP is saying he also doesn't know what input vector is and guessed it. Yeah. So it might be worth reading up on what is an input vector, but.
What is it really?
So,
that's that one feature that kicks you out, so you know that answer is.
Well, not necessarily.
Not really. You might not know it, but it's something.
Okay. Okay, Abdul seems to be having connectivity issues here, so I'm hoping that he heard the answer to that. Otherwise, he can go back and watch the video recording later and go through that. It looks like he's off again. Okay, so if we come back here, I'll just flip this around. Okay, number 43.
Fuck. I got it right.
Okay, one right, one wrong.
43.
43. How many we got? Got it right. 2 right, 1 wrong. 2 right, 2 wrong. 3 right, 2 wrong. Melissa? Wrong. Okay, 50-50 on this one.
And
Okay.
shockingly, I didn't understand what it means.
Okay, so let's look at this. An IS auditor finds that the data warehouse query performance decreases significantly at certain times of the day. Okay, so what's that telling us? we've got a database or a data warehouse with an underlying database, and at certain times of the day, the performance starts to go down. Why would the performance?
Lots of people querying.
Lots of people querying it. Okay, so at certain times of the day, there's a high usage, and people querying it, and that's not going to cause a problem. Okay. Which of the following controls would be the most relevant for the IS auditor to review? Okay. So A, permanent table space allocation. Well, if you run out of table space, then your system is going to stop working. Okay. And unless at every day at the same time the thing runs out of table space and the DBA is going and deleting stuff and he's a bit brain dead because he's not helping anybody fix it with a permanent solution, that seems unlikely. Okay. Table space running out, that'll be more like a one-off type thing. Okay. B, commitment and rollback controls. Commitment and rollback is what we discussed earlier around getting that atomicity and ensuring integrity of your transactions. Okay, so that's not really anything to do with what we're talking here. User spool and database limit controls. Okay, that's a possibility at this stage. D, read-write access log controls. No, that's not really helping us in terms of this. Okay, so what happens is when more and more people are using the system, they're using system resources. Okay? And the database normally allows you to define maximum in terms of resources. To say a person can run X number of queries at a time, or they may only be executing queries which are taking up this much processing power or database processing time at any point. Okay? And most often, people don't turn those things on. They just leave them all off. But if you're experiencing these kind of problems, then you can start to say, okay, well, I don't want one guy to impact the performance of everybody, so I'll put limits in place. Okay? And that's what you then do there. Okay? And as they say in here, on screen, user spool limits restrict the space available for running user queries. Okay, so one person can't consume it all. This prevents poorly formed queries from consuming excessive system resources and impacting general query performance. Limiting the space available to users in their own database prevents them from building up excessively large tables, and so it kind of goes on. But really it's about controlling what one user can do for the benefit of the many. Okay? Kind of like this uncapped ADSL usage. And everybody's like, oh, it's capped, but it's shaped and it's throttled and all that kind of stuff. Similar kind of story is that if you don't cap and put any restrictions in place, one guy can use all the bandwidth, and then the other 20 guys are sharing that same connection. We can't do anything, and that's not really fair. Yeah.
Some people want access for
normal work, so then.
Yeah, very much. If you allow that kind of stuff over lunchtime, then yes, people are going to go and access YouTube and Facebook, and it's going to immediately, you're going to hit your capacity on the link, and then people aren't going to be able to work. So in that case, what one normally wants to do is be able to have some kind of traffic prioritization system in place. It's not going to say, well, you can't use it, but it's going to say, well, hang on, YouTube is not a normal business application, therefore YouTube must be deprioritized relative to other stuff. If the bandwidth is there not being used, sure, you can use YouTube, but if there's other things that need to happen, well, then you're going to wait for ages, you're going to buffer and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's that kind of thing. Okay. Okay, so we're back to the first question that we had on this one. So I'm going to close this, and let's go back to there. So that was domain 4. So now we're going to hit domain 5.
I'm interested in that.
Okay, so here's the domain 5 questions. Let's have a look, see. Okay, so A528, which is where?
114.
114.
I'm sorry for that one.
Okay. So let's see.
I remembered the question actually. 114.
So we got one right, one wrong. Wrong. So it's 2 right, 3 wrong so far, Melissa.
I got B.
So you got that. Okay, so 50-50 one.
Is that B? No, I actually knew that.
You didn't get
Now
B.
I know it. Honestly, I went over chapter 5 now. Now
Okay.
I know it, but I did get it right. I did get B.
Okay.
Is that B?
Yeah.
Okay, I did get B. But that was a guess. But now I understand.
Okay, so you still guessed it right. Okay, so it's a 50-50 question, but let's look at it and see. Okay, so during a review of intrusion detection logs, okay, so the first thing is there's an intrusion detection system in place. They're logging certain activity. We're looking at the logs. So the auditor notices traffic coming from the internet, which appears to originate from the internal IP address of the company payroll server. Okay, so the thing about this is that if you look at it now, you've got a firewall in the middle, you've got internal traffic on the one side of the firewall, and you've got internet traffic on the other. Okay? The internal network will be using private address ranges, and the internet will be using public address ranges. Okay? It is not possible for traffic from a private range to come from the internet. It's technically not possible. Okay? And a firewall should never allow it. But in this case, it would seem that the firewall is allowing it because it's now appearing there. Okay? It immediately tells you that that traffic cannot be coming from the true source. And if the traffic is not coming from the true source, then it must be spoofed. Okay? So if we then look at it and say, well, okay, what's a denial of service attack? It's like flooding, where you're trying to make a system crash and you send lots of traffic or you send malformed packets or something like that. So this is not a denial of service. Okay? Spoofing, yes. Port scanning, no, this is not port scanning. Port scanning, you find a server and you try and say, is that port open, is that port open? You try all the different ports to see if they're open. You use something like Nmap or something and you can check what's going on. So it's not that. A man-in-the-middle attack, it's not a man-in-the-middle attack. Because man-in-the-middle, I think I'm talking to you, but you intercept it and you... So in between. So definitely spoofing.
The only thing that got me to get this right is to say appears. So I just thought someone was pretending
to be something else. And again, you're using the technique to get the right answers, which is great.
That's the only thing.
But now you'll know what it is going forward. So next
I'll
time,
know what it is, but the only thing, that keeps me there is appears. I said, well.
Yep, those indicators are important because they point us in the right direction and they confirm that knowledge that we have. Okay.
Oh, I'm going to compare with your lessons because I'm not the same way. For the first 20 and 16, so I'm going to compare this stuff.
They'd be shocked. I wasn't that good. I've got 13s and 14s out of 20.
11, 13, 11, 14.
Okay, Abdullah's come back online here and he's asking, was the answer to that question B? Abdul, from what we could figure out, is this the question about the vectors and the key combinations and key lengths?
Because length doesn't mean everything.
Checking with Abdul now what the correct answer was, because we all felt it was A, being the combination of key length and the degree of permutation. Okay. I'll check and see if when Abdul give us an answer just now. Okay, so this one we've covered. We spoke about this earlier. Okay. So A57.
A57.
Yeah, it's fine.
99.
99. You got it right. No? Okay, 2 wrong, 3 wrong, 4 wrong, 5 wrong, 6 wrong. This is the first one we got 100% wrong.
Okay, I put D.
D.
Everyone, we're all over the place here.
29.
Sure.
And the answer is A.
Yeah. Because they say GSM is appropriate.
This question.
I never knew that. Yeah, we did this.
I thought we did
Couple of weeks
previously,
ago, yeah.
and the answer was B. This is previous.
No, I think the answer was correct. It was A. But
Why we all got it
we
wrong?
said the GSM already said.
How come no one, all of
No one
us didn't remember?
Okay, so let's look at it again. Okay, so the auditor discovers that the CIO is using a wireless broadband modem utilizing GSM technology. Okay, the modem is being used to connect the CIO's laptop to the corporate VPN when the CIO travels outside of the office. Okay, the IS auditor should. So the first thing here is to remember that a VPN is intended to give you a secure encrypted tunnel over insecure networks.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, they're using a 3G type modem over GSM to connect to the organization's network, but they're then putting a VPN encrypted tunnel on top of that.
Yeah.
Okay, which is an appropriate control. That's what one would normally do. Okay, one wouldn't need to then do anything else because you're worried that GSM is insecure. You're already making the assumption that it is insecure, regardless of whether it is or isn't. Okay? So, A, it says do nothing since the inherent security features of GSM technology are appropriate. That's a little bit misleading and confusing.
Maybe
Okay?
it's appropriate
Because-
in conjunction with VPN.
You see, because it is in conjunction with, but you need to figure out for yourself from the question that it's in conjunction with VPN. And you need to figure out that it doesn't matter if it's going over an insecure channel because the VPN is good enough. Okay? But if you read the answer without reading the question properly, you're going to think, hang on, but I've read somewhere that GSM can be hacked and it's an old technology and the encryption isn't that great and all that stuff, all of which is true. But combined with your VPN and making sure that your VPN is good enough, then it's cool.
That's why I put D though. Because then further this thing, the VPN two-factor. That's what.
I just thought
Because you put a
GSM
VPN
was
with
old.
single-factor authorization.
But then two-factor authentication for wireless like in the outer.
Please do that and you can read the token ID.
Oh,
That's what I knew I read all the details. The number change everywhere.
Now, just coming back to Abdul's question earlier, okay, where we said we didn't know what the complex, those vectors, we said we didn't know what those are.
Yeah.
That's important. We got it wrong. Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The answer was, in fact, B, according to the mock exam that Abdul had done. Okay, where it said the strength of a secret key within a crypto system is determined by a combination of the key length, the initial vectors, and the complexity of the data encryption algorithm.
Let's
Okay?
Google it.
So if we look at the difference between A and B, A was talking about permutations. B is talking about the initial vectors.
What are these
Okay?
initial vectors?
So we need to go and read up and see what these initial vectors mean, because that'll help us understand why it possibly could be B instead of A. Because if those initial vectors is broader
B,
and provides a better answer, then it could be that. But we didn't choose it because we didn't know what it
didn't know
meant.
what it meant, yeah.
Okay, so
Let's check it.
thank you very much, Abdul. We'll go and try and figure out what that means, and then we'll let everybody know so that we can make sure.
I'm talking.
Maybe put the app on screen.
Okay,
And then something.
let's come back to that. If you want to look in the book in the meantime, in between us doing other stuff, that's
Yeah.
cool. Let's have a look at the next question. Okay. Okay, this question we're going to spend a grand total of 10 seconds on. When you have a fire suppression system, what needs to be in the system?
200.
FM 200.
What's FM?
It's a kind of gas that doesn't kill people. Okay.
I knew it wasn't wet pipe. I knew it wasn't carbon dioxide.
So you took dry pipe?
there was an initial gas that
Because I read that somewhere.
they had
Dry
phased
pipe.
away with in 1994 because
What?
it was killing, it was getting infecting people.
Which one is that?
With that whole part of that FM200. I can't
See, I even did this. Because before I saw a dry pipe answer, but there was no FM200 at that stage. So now they just introduced one better. So I put a
No,
question
but
mark
it's
there.
actually
But
in the book. So
yeah, no.
What's dry
Without
pipe
the
sprinkler?
five.
What is dry pipe?
Why is dry pipe?
The water stored in like a reservoir somewhere. It's not in the pipe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So it can't
Okay.
leak it. So.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
but
because
that's still putting water.
Mm.
Okay. So in the event of a fire, even with a dry pipe system, okay, it means that you're not going to get a leak if the
That's
pipe
right,
breaks.
halon system,
Yeah.
which is not just
Yeah. Halon gas. Halon, an alarm goes off, and you need to get the hell out of there before the gas comes in. Otherwise, you're not going to make it. Okay.
I'm not gonna make it.
Can I tell you what this FM200 is?
Yeah.
It's a colorless, odorless, gaseous halocarbon. It is commonly used as a gaseous fire suppression agent. It leaves no residue on the valuable equipment after discharge. I'm just going to read the important part. Large amounts of heat energy are absorbed from the surface of the burning material, lowering its temperature below the ignition point. FM200 fire suppression systems have low atmospheric lifetimes, global warming, and ozone depletion potentials. And then there's argonite and CO2.
So you can't.
Yeah, exactly. Argonite.
Unless we've got oxygen
It's
somewhere.
a registered trademark owned by someone for a mixture of 50% argon and 50% nitrogen. It is an inert gas used in gaseous fire suppression systems for extinguishing fires where damage to equipment is to be avoided. Although argon is non-toxic, it does not satisfy the body's need for oxygen and is simply asphyxiant.
It's going to suffocate you.
Yeah,
So it won't poison you.
Suffocated by breathing argon by mistake.
Okay, so FM1 is the best system
Yes.
it was.
Just keep that in your mind.
Let's look at the one with the
And
numbers.
Elon's system have been discontinued in 1994 because it
Yeah.
was scrapped.
But FM200, I think, is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So it's the ideal system, but it's expensive.
But if they say a small company with
Yeah,
And the
it's fine.
Halon substitute is FM1 is most effective.
Yeah. So a big data center should have FM200 almost without question.
do you have FM200?
Wow.
Really? When can I come and audit this?
Whoa, she's gonna come to the
Put him inside and let him go see me.
Now, look, you're not a small organization, okay? But yeah, in small organizations, I mean, look at it realistically. What are you going to have in your data center? Okay, you're going to have a small couple off-the-shelf kind of
Off-the-shelf
servers,
thing, yeah.
and you know, if you have to go down to your local PCD and buy another server, it's not the end of the world. You know, whereas so you've got to look at your risk and the cost. You know, you don't put, let's say, 200,000 rands worth of FM200 gas to support 20,000 rands worth of server. Okay, it just doesn't make sense. So you have to match it up and come up with that answer then. Okay. Now here's another question related to this, which JP came up with,
Yeah.
which is an interesting one. So I'm going to
Control please.
paste it over. It's related to this. There we go. So which of the following fire suppressant systems would an IS auditor expect to find when conducting an audit of an unmanned computer center? Okay. So keyword there, unmanned.
Unmanned.
Okay, so there's nobody in it. Okay. So now we had some different options there. So A was carbon dioxide, B halon, C dry pipe, D wet pipe. Okay. So now
It
it's
can't be because it's top.
No,
Yeah, there's double body. It kills people, but here there's
So
nobody.
it's still available. It's not totally.
Well, I mean, it's illegal now, but people.
Then Halon's the best.
Illegal.
Carbon dioxide. I would
So-
say also.
I think if there's nobody there,
No, but
it's not gonna kill anyone.
Not allowed.
It's not illegal. They just continued it for the first whatever.
So what does it say? Is it illegal? Was it allowed? Is it not allowed?
So access the gas line.
Okay, well,
Carry out
okay,
users
let's
maybe
let me read this here.
Like, we're not trying to look for the most lethal one. We just
Yeah.
kill the fire. Carbon dioxide, suck all the oxygen.
Okay, CO2 systems release pressurized carbon dioxide gas into the area projected to replace the oxygen required for combustion. Unlike halon and its later replacements, however, CO2 is unable to sustain human life.
Okay.
Therefore, in most countries, it is illegal for such systems to be set to automatic release if any human may be seen in the area.
Okay,
There's no human
and this
there.
one says an unmanned data center.
It removes oxygen from the air, thus starting the fire. Halon was popular because it is an inert gas and does not damage equipment like water does. There should be an audible alarm and brief delay before discharge to permit personnel time to evacuate the area or to override and disconnect the system because halon adversely affects the ozone layer. It was blamed in Montreal, Canada, whatever, what stopped halon production as of January 2020.
Now it's 8.
Carbon
So
dioxide.
carbon dioxide would then seem to be the correct answer here, because both carbon dioxide and halon kill people. It's an unmanned data center, and carbon dioxide is not going to damage the atmosphere. And so I would go with A. JP, do you know what the correct answer is there? Abdul also reckons it's A, and I'm with Abdul on that.
Discontinued though, but
Okay, so what's it says, since fire cannot burn in carbon dioxide, it is an effective suppressant. However, in a manned operation, release of this gas is likely to result in fatalities, so automatic release is inadvisable, if not illegal, and manual release delays the suppression of the fire. Okay, that's fine, but the question that you posted to us said an unmanned computer center. So answer is A. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so just be careful of that particular nuance
Unmanned,
there,
yeah.
is that we've been talking about human life and death and that, and that's right, but if it's an unmanned data center,
yeah.
it's a different scenario. Then you can do what you like, but you still don't want to damage the atmosphere. So think of it from the green perspective. That you
So what if
Okay.
they threw in FM200?
Cool, thanks, JP.
Instead of halon?
FM200
I would
is
have went for
top of the
CO2.
high
I would have
rise.
still went for carbon
But
dioxide.
it's
It's cheaper.
expensive. Oh, because of the cost now.
And FM200 is fine for.
But cost.
But remember also, yeah, so definitely from a cost perspective, CO2 much cheaper than FM200.
Yeah.
If it's unmanned, go for that.
And if it's unmanned, you could do that. But what it would mean is that if somebody's in there, laying some cables or working there, you would have to turn off the fire suppression system while they're in there. Then you would have to wait for the guy to physically leave the building and then reactivate the system. Okay? And if somebody outside activates it while the guy's in there, he still dies. Okay? So one would have to read the question very carefully in that scenario. Best option still, as long as cost permits, you're going with the FM200. Okay. Thanks, JP.
Yeah. Nah. Unmanned.
Is that like JP Blue?
Yeah. Try your luck.
JP's got lots of
With
fans.
all the money, JP Dumini doesn't have time for
Okay.
Okay.
5247.
$100.
Number 100. Okay, so we've got one wrong over here.
I'm right.
Okay, so it's 2-1 towards the wrongs. 2-2. 3-2. 3-3. So it's another 50-50.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you know what? I saw this question come out in the database.
I also
and the
saw
answer
this.
was actually C.
No, maybe it was
IS
worded different, but I read this also about that.
IS audit.
Final decision to include in material finding. How can it be the CEO?
Hang on.
Never.
No, it's
No,
not
no,
the
no.
CEO.
Whoa, whoa,
It's
whoa.
100. We're talking 100, not the CEO.
Which question are we looking at?
Oh, sorry.
Yay.
Oh,
Yay.
then I got that answer. I got C.
Okay, so,
15 minutes ago. I don't
okay. Let's look at it quickly.
know. What the hell?
But hang on.
No, the answer is not C.
Sounds
It's D.
not
It's
C,
a
it's
C.
Oh, well, then I got it wrong.
Sorry, it's a C.
So, wrong question, but yeah, sorry.
C.
Mm.
Okay, so What should an organization do before providing an external agency physical access to its information processing facilities?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting question in these times, given everything that goes on in our modern world.
Do you guys do it? Like him? Do you do this?
You can go back and write your own audit reports.
Now I
and
know.
Just hand it in. Confession notes. Okay. So, A, the processes of the external agency should be subjected to an IS audit by an independent agency.
No.
Okay. But they're coming to your facilities.
And you want them
Okay.
to.
So I'm not really sure how it's going to help you in that scenario. B, employees of the external agency should be trained on the security procedures of the organization. Yeah, that's a okay option.
Whether or not they implement them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
C, any access by an external agency should be limited to the demilitarized zone. The problem is that the DMZ is not a physical thing; it's a virtual thing. It's a part of a network. So they're talking about physical access. So you can't put a physical person into a virtual space. Okay. But if they're talking about external virtual access, then yes, you could restrict them there. Okay. Okay. And then D, the organization should conduct a risk assessment and design and implement appropriate controls. Well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Okay. And then the risk assessment is how many things start. And so if there's an option to do a risk assessment, read it very carefully before you say no to that.
What for risk?
No, they want to get this, but we need to
You see, there's an audit at IT in July. I already have an audit report in mind after all
that can be a very quick audit. You just make them sign all the confession notes and you're done.
I look at like all these confessions and
His root cause is lack of budget.
or lack of knowledge.
Okay, so that's covered then in terms of the ones that are here. Okay, so we've done all your questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
lucky, yeah.
Not all, that's only some, but anyway.
Okay,
Yeah.
are there
You send the emails.
Yeah, I just took pictures and sent it.
No, I mean the emails earlier
Morning,
today.
yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Was that thing? Huh?
Connections in high places.
No, I got. Yeah, you gave us a business card. So I had
You see?
then I have
You must
one.
give out business cards.
And then I expected you to tell him that. But then I hit you.
Today I didn't even sit in my office for more than 2 minutes, so literally it was just from 7:30 till about 4 o'clock. I had meetings. I just sort of ran out.
Okay, are there any more questions from our guys online? From Krishna okay, there we go. JP's, okay, nothing from Krishna. Thanks, Krishna. Okay, so JP sent another question here, which I'm just going to copy over. Okay, so the purpose of backups includes all of the following except.
Purpose.
Yeah. So why do we do backups? And what kind of problems does it cover us for? Okay. So it covers everything except. Okay. So what's the exception? What's the odd one out that it's not going to help us with? Software malfunctions?
It does the tool
Maybe.
help us, yeah.
Okay. Human error?
If you delete everything. by
Yeah, if you
mistake,
delete a file by mistake, you can get it
Yeah.
off the backups. So definitely with human error. Hardware malfunctions? Our server crashes, we take the backup, we restore it to another one.
What class?
So hardware malfunctions,
I don't
yes.
know.
Yeah, see now, because we don't know one term. Get wrong.
Cluster failover?
No.
Okay, so somebody want to tell us what a cluster is? Okay, so Not that cluster. We're not talking disk clusters. Well, we're not talking sectors on a disk. Okay. So if we now if we have a server that we want to now specify, okay, and instead of saying we want one big powerful server, it's okay, we want to have a cluster of smaller servers, okay, so that if one of the servers fails, the other ones will carry on running as if nothing happened. And we might lose a little bit of peak performance processing power, but for our day-to-day operations, it shouldn't really make any difference. Okay? And increasingly, people are moving towards that. Many years ago, clustering in the DEC VAX days and all that was quite popular. Then it kind of moved back towards the central server. Now, Microsoft, for their SQL servers and all of that, are recommending clustering again rather than one big powerful server. Okay? So, JP saying multiple servers performing the same role. Yes, pretty much. Sometimes they're even more tightly connected than that. There's actually like a heartbeat between the different clusters, and in real time, they're replicating data with each other. So, the likes of Google and Yahoo and all these guys, they use huge clustered data centers of servers, where if one server in there goes down, it really makes no difference at all. It's actually they're designed to fail in a way. And if one fails, it doesn't impact anybody, because the data is written in a place that they can all get access to it. There's multiple copies of it. And in fact, some of them go so far as to intentionally fail some of their servers. Okay, so I don't know if it was Yahoo or one of them, they wrote these things that they called monkeys. So they've got a control system that purposely randomly fails servers inside these clusters, so that you know that there's absolutely no dependence on a single server. So in that scenario, I don't see why we would be using backups. Okay? Because that thing's got its live replication data and everything's going on there. So I don't think cluster failover is included then within the purpose of backups. JP, do you have the correct answer there? Answer's D. It is D, yeah. Because, so your backups you don't use in cluster failovers. The entire cluster failed, then you might need a backup to restore to a new cluster. But within a cluster, when you've got failovers, then you wouldn't need it. Okay. So, sorry, Krishna C wasn't the answer there. I think, for hardware malfunctions, we definitely want to use our backups, or may need to use our backups in the event of a hardware malfunction. Okay. Cool. JP, have you got some more questions for us there?
Lots of, when you run the questions, there's always lots of BCP and DRP questions. There's like lots of them. Yeah, RTO and...
You need to know those. JP sent me a question earlier today, which I don't have up here, which was asking around those things as well. And, part of the explanation I gave him was that when you're looking at recovery time objective and recovery point objective, is that when a system has already failed, okay, so you've had a failure, your recovery point objective is no longer relevant. Okay? Your recovery point objective is looking at things like how much data can we afford to lose. Okay? Once you know how much data you can afford to lose, then you do your design of your whole backup system. And you design it to say, I'm going to back up every hour or every half hour, I'm going to back up log files. And if you don't take that into account when you do the design, you're on a hiding to nothing. Okay? When you actually have had an incident, okay, now it's your recovery time objective. Which systems need to be up within which period of time, and that determines the order of how you're going to bring them back up again. So just remember that when you're looking at a question, is look at the scenario of what's actually happened. So am I looking at design before I build my backup systems? Okay? Or am I looking at now I'm trying to recover from something that's already happened? And that can also help you then looking at the recovery time versus the recovery point. Okay.
Also, like the other one, to differentiate, I used to say, the one that talks about time objective, you're talking about, the allowance for time that can go with your failure or whatever. And the other one is specifically talking to data. Because once you have those two distinctions, then,
absolutely.
you can make them.
And those are going to be a hot side, warm side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it though. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm,
And just remember what those are. So, yeah, just quick reminder: hot site, warm site, cold site. So, cold site is
Nothing.
there's nothing there. You've just got physical space. Warm site,
There's something.
hardware's there, it's not configured.
Yeah.
Okay. Hot site.
Everything. You can go there now.
Okay, but hang on. Just let's be clear about this. Hot site is
This is where you plug the backup in.
so there's
You
a
plug
live
the
running
system, yeah.
system, but there's no live data in it.
Yes.
Okay.
Just need to.
Because then there's one better than a hot site, which is your replicated site.
Mirroring.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's it. Okay?
Mirroring site.
When you get there, your data is actually there. So do not forget that a hot site is not the
Supposed
best.
to record the
Okay?
inside.
RPO is slow.
Yeah, when it's zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead
When
of
it's low,
mirroring.
it's slow.
When you are RTO,
RPO.
Which?
When both are low.
a mirror
Yeah.
you'd use when your recovery time objective is zero, because you don't want to have to take a backup
Time,
tape
yeah.
and spend time recovering it. So you want your data to be live there. But just don't forget that there is one better than a hot site. Hot sounds like it should be the best, but it's
It should
not.
be called the boiling side instead of, instead of mirroring. Instead of mirroring.
Okay.
And then there's a reciprocal agreement.
Yep,
So
that's
that's
it.
how mine.
Okay, so we've got questions now from JP and from Abdul, which is great. So let's start with JP's question here. So read this out. An IS auditor suspects an audit attack is occurring while an audit is being performed on a financial system. What should the IS auditor do first? Okay, so you suspect the system is being attacked. Okay, so just before we go into the answers, what is the role of an auditor? What can an auditor do and what can't an auditor do?
You're looking at controls, yeah.
So the auditor can't make any decisions. The auditor doesn't turn systems on or off. The auditor doesn't reconfigure anything. There's people in the organization who have that responsibility. So bearing that in mind, so A, the auditor requests that the system be shut down to preserve evidence. So it's like, yeah, I guess it's a possibility, but you know, management should be making the decision. The auditor shouldn't be making that decision. Okay. B, report the incident to management. Absolutely, we must
Probably,
tell
yeah,
management.
that's the one, yeah.
Okay. Hold that thought. We'll come back to that. C, ask for immediate suspension of the accounts. No. D, immediately investigate the source and nature of the incident. Again, it's not the auditor's responsibility to do that. You've got your forensic guys, you've got your security officers, and those guys. So report to management. Option B.
Yeah, that's my option.
So JP, we're going with option B here. Is that the correct answer there? Yep, option B is the correct one. Okay. So then, Abdul's given us a question now around, again, these hot sites. Okay. There we have it. Hot site, off-site processing facilities are characterized by A, high implementation and maintenance costs.
Probably.
Okay. You've got equipment there, you've got duplicate equipment, it's live, it's running, the operating systems are running, it's patched, it's just waiting for data. So, yeah. B, reduced recovery time. Reduced recovery time.
No, it's a, oh, okay.
Well, it depends now. Compared to what? So, compared to a cold or a warm site, a hot site does have reduced recovery site. Compared to a mirroring site, it's got increased. Okay. But we don't know what they're comparing it to. Okay. C, decreased disaster preparation costs.
No.
I'm not so sure. I think it's. So now we've either got to go with A by itself, or we can go with A and B. Okay.
Although we don't know what B is comparing to,
but I would think that
D
if you're comparing
and
it, so I would go with D.
Yeah. Yes.
Option E says. You can.
Wow.
Abdul, the guys are complaining that you're giving us questions with 5 answers, and there's only 4 in the exam. So
We can't
they're
get
questioning
tricking
your
us.
source.
Just look at the sample.
Yeah, I think it's D.
Okay, but still, let's treat the question with it. Anyway, so yeah, so JP saying C is factually incorrect. We're agreeing with you on that it doesn't. So C is
Yeah.
out. So it's either
A or D.
well, it's either A and B or A by itself. Okay, pick one.
D. A.
I'm hearing D.
Wait, okay. Let's
If they say no recovery time, then maybe.
Yes, that's true as well.
no, but the recovery, ne? No, recovery.
Okay.
Okay, maybe let's think about this.
Okay.
You've got a hot site, right?
Mhm.
You've always had a backup.
Yeah.
So the information is there already. You just need to sort of load
Install it, load it,
yeah,
yeah.
install it, right?
Yeah.
But now, if you had, let's say, the restoring itself, does it go down because you had a hot site, or it doesn't?
If you had a cold site, you might
You
still
have to
need, you would still
buy-
need to go and move equipment there. Then you'd have to install operating systems on it, and then you could install your data on it. If you had a warm site, you still would have to install the operating systems and possibly backdo a backup or a restore of that from a backup before you can do the other backup. So by having a hot site, you're reducing the number of steps before you can start recovering your data.
Recovery versus running now.
Yes.
If you're saying it reduces the
Because if you look at the total,
Yeah.
if you look at recovery time as being the amount of times that we're up and running again,
okay, yeah, if that's the case, then yeah.
then yeah.
I think D.
Okay, so D and D is the correct answer. Okay. So hot sites are the most expensive type of alternate processing redundancy. Well, don't forget that you've got your fully replicated mirrored sites,
Yeah.
Abdul. So the answer there is not quite aligned with what the ISACA documentation is saying. There is one better than a hot site, but yes. And I think that D is the correct answer in this scenario here. Okay. JP has sent us another question over
Rubini
here.
is on fire today. Yeah, he's given away on cricket.
Okay. So, determining the service delivery objective. Okay, that's not a term we've come across up to now. Okay, should be based primarily on A, the minimum acceptable operational capability.
Probably.
B, the cost effectiveness of the restoration process. C, meeting recovery time objectives. D, the allowable interruption window.
Service delivery objective.
I think A or C, but I'm down to both.
Operational capability. Yeah. Probably A, because this one is what we know when we're talking about it.
Yeah. Reading those, my thinking is along A, but I don't have an answer based in knowledge. That's a guess.
But what's the other choice?
You don't have a
Pick
reference
another
for
choice. I got your kick out. The last one's out.
No, the last one's not necessarily
So
out.
it's a hard one.
See, the allowable interruption window, I would see that as being, okay, hang on. It's the service delivery objective, SDO, is directly related to the business needs and the level of service to be reached during the alternate process mode until the normal situation is restored. Okay.
So which one?
So your SDO is telling you that in the event of some kind of disaster, we may not need full capability. We need some kind of partial capability. And the SDO is defining what the partial capability is. Okay? So given that, then A makes sense. It's the minimum acceptable operational capability. And that's almost by definition. Okay? So thank you, JP. If you get this one in the exam on Saturday,
We're all gonna
you
take
can all buy JP a beer.
Yeah.
So So don't forget that thing, okay? I'm going to just...
Minimum acceptable.
So JP wants this to come up in the exam.
Wow.
On religious grounds, you're only going to get a Coke from some of our participants. Okay. Okay. Do we have some more questions?
Tell us about your exam. How was it?
My exam? Which
You wrote
exam?
in December, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the wrong person to ask. I came first in the world. So.
You came first
You had the wrong.
highest mark ever.
Came up first in the
The history of
world.
CISA.
You what?
I came first in the world.
In the world.
In the world, yeah.
Ever.
There's something wrong with you. What did you get? Like what? 800 out of 800.
No, I got 727.
I should have spent more time with it if I had known this. I buy beer for the whole month and I spend. On a Sunday when you wake up, I'm like, here's a beer. Let's go. Let's go.
Thanks, Krishna. All the best of luck to you as well, and best of luck to all the guys online as well. Thanks for joining us.
In the world.
Cool. Thanks for your contributions, JP. Cheers, Carmen. Cheers, Abdul.
Yeah, maybe next week we should meet. The other guys will buy you a Coke, will buy you beers.
Yeah.
Hey, did you guys want to get together tomorrow night, or where are you guys
I'm
at?
not even in town.
You're not in town. It's an option. If you guys are keen, I'm fine to do it. But that's up to
Let me
you
know
guys.
by email if we get to
I'm in town.
Okay.
My time
No.
dedicated to
No. Okay. Cool. Okay. So it sounds like not enough people can make it. We're calling it. Now you can go and hit that database and just keep at those questions. Okay. Cool. Thanks, Abdul. Good luck.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Cheers, guys.
For everything. We will give you a call after the
Yeah.
exam.
Please give me a call and let me know how it all goes.
The results.
Wait, that's fine. So we're back here tomorrow anyway. Yeah. Cool.
We'll send you all our results.
It's a pleasure. Thanks,
Number
guys.
one in the world. What, did ISACA not want to hire you after that? You're like, okay, you know what?
They did ask me to host the bootcamp sessions.
Oh,
And
really?
there weren't enough people interested, so it didn't happen.
Because we
But,
tried bootcamp in Durban and then there were just not enough people.
yeah, there were not enough people, so they didn't do it.